It's the radio guy, Mike Prince. Welcome to another episode of the Mike Prince Show, right here from the Open Mic Broadcast Network, coming to you each and every day. Our social media handles are Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Mike Prince Show. The YouTube channel is Open Mic Broadcast Network. Our website is obnradio.com and the 24-hour dial-in message line, 713-570-6736. And without any further delay, we're going to jump right into today's episode. Well, the dust has settled, and we have the last two teams standing in the Southwestern Athletic Conference to see who would move forward to compete against North Carolina A&T in the Celebration Bowl in the next couple of weeks. Alcorn will be hosting Southern University yet again. It seems like a broken record with these three teams dealing in the mix. When I say these three teams, I'm talking about Alcorn, Southern, and North Carolina A&T. But nonetheless, if you want somebody new, the other programs got to get better. Exciting game it was with the Bayou Classic. Went down to the wire. The blocked field goal attempt from 40 yards out. And the game ended up being another classic. Grambling jumped up 21-3, and it looked like it was going to be good night, Irene. And I remember sitting down with my son watching the game. He said, "Pop, you think it's over with?" I said, "No, son, you never can tell." That's how these Bayou Classics go. And as an ending result, it was a very good game. Someone had to lose. Unfortunately, it was Grambling. And of course, fans get excited. Fans get emotional. Sometimes fans go beyond the point of reason and logic. And there were commands and demands that Fob and the staff would be replaced and readjusted. And you can understand the emotional part of it. I truly understand the emotional part of it, being a PV fan. But when the dust settles and you look at it and the full body of work that was put in, you cannot hit the panic button just yet. This program was 0-4 to start out, but then on the last day of the season, they're fighting for an opportunity to represent the Western Division in the SWAC Championship. Now, when you look at this thing and all the dust settles, as we've been mentioning, and the final standings as they hold up, it will give one, and I'm going to use the word, an illusion on the type of year that it was for 2019 in football for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. If I were to ask you right now, who were the top four teams in the conference, it'd be interesting to hear and see your response. But to save you the trouble, the top four teams in the conference are Alcorn, Southern, Alabama A&M, and Prairie View A&M University. Despite the disappointing season, the Panthers end up number 2 in the West, number 4 overall in the conference. And depending on who you ask and what you look at, it's tomato. But the bottom line is it adds to the frustration on the what ifs when it comes to the Panthers' 2019 campaign. A lot of rumors are floating around on every campus, floating around with what needs to be done with the Grambling staff, what needs to be done with the Southern staff, what needs to be done with the Prairie View staff, what needs to be done with the Jackson State staff. Moves have been made, and there'll be more moves to be made. And the bottom line is, how do you get the most out of your resources available to you. And when you look at it, you see in the Power Five world, if they figure they've gotten it wrong, they just have the buyouts and they turn the page. Well, that's not the case in the world of FCS, in particular that of HBCU factor. Even though Ron Prince was a one and done deal at Howard, and I guess if it's something exceptional along those lines, then you have to do what you have to do. But for the most part, these are contracts that have been eaten for the most part, which led me to believe, and I had discussion on last night's episode of the Sports Report Live with Lee Hall out of Greenwood, Mississippi. We didn't get a chance to go deeper into it, but it was something that came up as we were discussing the said topic. Would it be out of the norm to offer 5-year contracts with a $150,000 base salary, of course, with incentives in it, and a clause that would protect both sides that as you increase within your 5 years, you get a bump up in salary? And if it's not going the way we thought it should go, we could exit ways. Something to look at. What caliber of coach could you get at 150 base a year? But remember, it's going to be loaded with incentives. And most contracts are loaded with incentives. But it replaces what I would call the fat cat theory, where a guy has this guaranteed amount of money, he goes in, he's settled, and in the back of his mind is, as long as I'm getting paid, yeah, I want to win, but I want to make sure I get paid too. And I think it's just a potential way of protecting both sides. And it would create opportunities for institutions to stack their programs across the board. I made the mention in last night's episode, Alcorn, phenomenal run on football, but they fall off on everything else. Everything else. And as an alumni, as an athletic director, even as a president, I want to be relevant across the board. So it really is 6 in one hand and half a dozen in another when you're trying to balance and figure this thing out. But it is what it is, and it shall be what it shall be. FCS playoffs are going into their second round. We'll talk about that a little bit later on throughout the course of the week. We're also working on getting with Mr. Chad Tolliver from the NCAA office in discussion of the FCS playoffs. We're working on a couple other things throughout the course of this week and the weeks to come. Another big basketball win for Texas Southern and for Prairie View. Prairie View victorious over UTSA 79-72. Texas Southern victorious over Lamar 76-73. Things are heating up right now. We're getting ready for the SWAC championship in Lorman, Mississippi on the reservation. Who will prevail between the Jags and the Braves? And then to add to that, who then would be able to take on the likes of the North Carolina A&T Aggies? Do the Aggies have an advantage not playing a championship game, or the SWAC champion coming off the momentum of playing very emotional games? If you're in the shoes of Southern, you had a very emotional win over Grambling. You're going to have another emotional game going against Alcorn. Could it be that the SWAC champion would be mentally fatigued before they even step foot on the Celebration Bowl? Something to at least think about. But nonetheless, the games will be played and they shall be played. We'll talk a whole lot more about the weekend that was leading to the week that shall be, not only on the gridiron, but also on the hardwood. And speaking of hardwood, we want to give a congratulations to Alabama State, Coach Penny Lucas White. They received their draw. They'll take on Florida, and it'll be a very interesting thing. And speaking of Florida, Florida will be in town to take on the Panthers in basketball, women's side of basketball, December 5th. There's a lot going on. But guess what? I'm going to exit stage left for now. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. Thank you guys so much for joining us on today. And until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.
Wherever he laid his hat was his home.